Hello, beautiful people. Today, I am coming at you with a little book haul. If you are new to my channel, hi, I am April. You can think of me as your bookish fairy godmother. And on this channel, my goal is to connect you with your next 5-star read. And these are just some of the books that live rent-free in my head. If you like what you see, go ahead, subscribe, hit the bell, and stay a while. Shall we dive in? I'm going to start with a book that I am currently reading. This is The Will of the Many. This is a fantasy book, and if you know me, you know I'm kind of new-ish to fantasy, and so this is taking me a while to go through. Like, I've been reading it all of November, and I'm still only here. So it is quite interesting, though. It's kind of sold to me as like a grown-up version of the Hunger Games. In this world, we have a very much a hierarchy of the haves and the have-nots. And the haves basically take the will, the power, the strength of all sorts of people underneath them. And so we meet someone named Viz, or Viz, I don't know how to say his name. And he is kind of the have-nots. And he is discovered one day and is taken in by someone higher in the hierarchy from him. And that person wants him to go to a school to spy and to find out what is happening within the school. And so he moves his way to the school. Now, what he is kind of keeping close to his chest is that he is actually, I think, a prince of sorts from a kingdom that fell when this hierarchy was started. And he's actually there for revenge, like personal revenge. I am liking it. It's just taking me a while to get through. If you don't know, I read the first line of all of the books that I haul so that we can see if I think it's a 5-star first line. Sometimes when it's a 5-star first line, that leads to a 5-star book. So that is the goal. All right, let's read the first line of The Will of the Many. I am dangling, and it is only my father's blood-slicked grip around my wrist that stops me from falling. I think that's a 5-star first line because it draws you in immediately. A little slower once you get into it, but I am liking it. Next up is Christmas with the Queen. This just came out. When I'm filming this, it came out like a couple of days ago. And Barry got this for me from my wish list because we are heading to Vermont soon. And he got this for me so that I can read it while we're there, which is so thoughtful of him. This is a Hazel Gaynor book, and she writes sometimes with someone named Heather Webb. They also wrote Last Christmas in Paris, which I really liked and bawled my eyes out reading. There's something about Hazel Gaynor. She just makes me weep and weep and weep. In this book, we're following 3 perspectives. We follow the Queen of England. It's December 1952, and she's preparing for Christmas. She in particular is preparing for her first broadcast as Queen. We follow Olive, who is a young mother. She is also an aspiring reporter at the BBC, and she gets the opportunity to go to the estate, Sandringham estate, where the Queen is, and she gets to kind of cover the Queen's first Christmas as Queen. But things kind of fall apart, and she is wondering if she will ever be taken seriously enough as a woman to have a really good career as a reporter. And then we're meeting a widower, I should say, Jack Devereaux. He is a chef, and he is working in the Queen's kitchens. And I think Jack and Olive meet. There is probably going to be romance, and you guys know me, I have no heart, but at Christmas it does grow a little bit. So let's read the first line of Christmas with the Queen. I'm so excited to read this one. Okay, Queen Elizabeth II, Buckingham Palace, December 1952. December arrives with a blanket of thick fog and a flurry of activity as the staff begin the preparations for Christmas. Not a 5-star first line, but I'm so excited to read this. The next book is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. This has been republished and has kind of been all over Book Talk for sure, and also a little bit on BookTube as well. It's a small little thing and it sounds incredible. It's a dystopian book in which we meet 39 women who are locked in a cage underground, and they don't have any memory of how they got there. They don't know why they're there. And then we follow the 40th woman, who I'm assuming is just brought in, or I don't know. She is like kind of in the corner of this cage, and she is going to be the key for all of these women escaping. I don't know much more about it than that. I hope they enact their revenge surrounding these terrible men who are keeping them a hostage. Okay, let's read the first line. Since I barely venture outside these days, I spend a lot of time in one of the armchairs rereading the books. Ooh, that's interesting. I wonder if this is like before or after they escape. It does show that they do escape. That's not like a spoiler or anything. Not a 5-star first line, but I definitely want to be picking this up because it looks incredible. I've got a couple of books that were sent to me from publishers next. Hachette Books sent Me Dearest by Jacquie Walters. This is a horror book about just after a baby is born, which if any of you guys have had kids, it is partly a cozy time and partly like a really unsettling, kind of an upheaval to your routine if you're someone who like works on a schedule. That's out the door. And now we meet a very new mom, Flora, who has a new baby girl who has come early. She was born early. Her name is Iris. Now Flora is doing it on her own. Her husband is still deployed somewhere, and she brings Iris home, is trying to do it all on her own. But she starts to think that something is going on in her house. Things are being moved around. She thinks that someone is talking to her baby on the baby monitor. That would be like terrifying, my worst nightmare. And then her mom shows up, which should be great, should be very helpful, right? But her mom has been out of her life for a while. And so it's this awkward thing. Is her mom safe to be near her child? She's really not sure. So let's read the first line of Dearest, which I'm assuming is Mommy Dearest. I love that. Prologue. When Flora wakes, her mouth is so dry that the inside of her cheeks are stuck to her teeth. Ooh, I like that. Not a 5-star first line, but really, really good. Next is Something in the Walls by Daisy Pearce. This is coming out in February, and it sounds so eerie. Listen to the blurb on the back here. A deliciously creepy and twisty chiller, that fans of The Conjuring and Stephen King will love. I'm not an enormous fan of Stephen King, but I'm an enormous fan of The Conjuring. So that was like music to my ears in the weirdest way possible. So this is about a child psychologist named Mina. She has been called to a small town called Bathenol. It's an English town that has a very, very long history of witchcraft, witch sightings, that kind of thing. It's steeped in history surrounding that. And she's there to meet with a 13-year-old girl named Alice, who says that she's being haunted by a witch. And the town, I believe, believes her. And of course, Mina probably does not, considering she comes from a science background, probably doesn't believe her, and is trying to figure out what is going on with this girl's like mental health. I love the premise of this. Okay, let's read the first line of Something in the Walls. 1. Friday, June 16th, 1989. I also love that it's set in the 80s. I didn't know that. Okay, I walk into the pharmacy on Union Street for 2 things. My photographs and a pregnancy test. Ooh, I like that. That's a 5-star first line. I really like that. You immediately want to get into it, find out what's happening. Next up is a Christmas story that is not a very happy one, but does look really good. This is Mr. Ives Christmas. This takes place in New York, and we follow a man named Edward Ives. He is happily married. He's in advertising in New York. He has 2 kids, and one day, just before Christmas, his son is killed by another teenage boy. And of course, he dives into an intense, deep grief that takes over his entire life. He loses his faith, and he works through losing his son at the most wonderful time of the year. It sounds devastating, but it also sounds really good too. So let's read the first line. Long ago at Christmas, it says, years ago in the 1950s, as a young man working for Madison Avenue advertising agency, Ives always looked forward to the holiday season and would head out during his lunch hours, visiting churches to think and meditate, and if he was lucky, to hear the choirs as they practiced their hymns and sacred songs. I don't think that's a 5-star first line, but it does sound really, really good. Last but not least is a book that I have mentioned before, I think in a wrap-up actually. I'd never even hauled it. This is a nonfiction book about parenting. It's called Parenting with Love and Logic. This is a book that delves into how to give your child a little bit more control over their lives. The argument is every year that they get older, they're just going to want more control over their lives. So how do you set them up to make choices for themselves, and let them fall gently enough that they're not completely devastated, but give them choices that might help them make better choices in the future. That's the idea here. Now, I will say there are things in this book that have been a real game changer from me as a parent, and I really love some of them. Then there are things in this book that I would just never do, ever. Things like leaving your child somewhere and having a friend pop by to check on them. There's a whole section in there that was like, we took out the chapter on spanking because we don't believe in that anymore. I'm like, what? So there's a lot of stuff in here that I would go enormous question mark. Take this stuff with a grain of salt, but take what works for you and leave the rest is my suggestion. I have done that myself. So I feel like this is a good book for someone who wants to do gentle parenting, but wants it to be a little bit more, not forceful, just more, something that has a bit more consequences, if that makes any sense. And I'm not trying, I feel like I'm saying that wrong and suggesting that gentle parenting doesn't have consequences at all. But I struggle doing gentle parenting. I tend to lose my cool a little bit, which I know is an inside job, but this is helping me for sure. So, okay. First line. Also, I will say there's lots of Christianity stuff in here. Almost every chapter has like a quote from the Bible. Like, I think get rid of that stuff. You're alienating so many people when you do that. But it's their book and they can do what they want with their book and I can complain. All right. First line. A mother and father stand outside of a restaurant in the rain, asking their 3-year-old Chloe to get in the car so the family can go home. Not a 5-star first line, but then again, it's very rare for a nonfiction book to have a 5-star first line. So those are all the books that I have hauled as of late. Let me know in the comments below. Have you gotten anything lately that you're excited about? Any like last minute books that you want to pick up? Or is there anything that still needs to be released that you're excited about? I cannot wait to read Christmas with the Queen. I think I'm gonna like try to just hunker down and read The Will of the Many so that I can get to Christmas with the Queen, because the idea of being in Vermont by a cozy fire and reading that, if that is not like a push up the bum to do it, I don't know what is. I will talk with you guys very soon. Goodbye.